It's time to take your business to the next level, the boss level. These are the premier business owner strategies and successes being utilized by the industry's top talent today. Rock your business like a boss, a VO boss. Now let's welcome your host, Ann Ganguza.
Hey everyone, welcome to the VO Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Ann Ganguza, and today I have a very special panel of guests here to talk about representation in voiceover. I'd like to first welcome back my amazing guest co-host for the past 13 weeks, and it has just flown by. I know, right? The lovely and super talented Keisha Monk.
How the heck are you?
Keisha,
what's going on?
I'm doing good. The time has flown by, and I'm just gonna say I'm gonna miss you already.
It's all good. I ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
I'm right here.
Thank you so much for this amazing time that we've had together for the past few weeks.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd also like to welcome Jean-Francois Donaldson, a.k.a. the Deep Voice Guy. He has been in the business for over a decade and is the voice of companies such as Zatarain's, Blue Cross Blue Shield, CeraVe, Church's Chicken, and many others. And I'd love to hear him expand on those others as well. And of course, another guest panelist, Mr. Trey Mosley, who has been a voice actor since 2009, and you can hear him in promos for ABC, Comedy Central, NASCAR, the MLB Network, CNN, Smithsonian, HBO, ESPN, and the list goes on. And he's also the voice of DJ Tremo in the Superstar KO mode for Madden 2021, and I hear there's some congratulations in order for 22.
How we doing?
First of all, thank you so very much for all of you for joining me today. I am truly grateful for all of you willing to be here. I know you guys are busy to talk about what I consider to be a very important and timely topic, which has certainly been affecting our industry. There's been a lot of talk, and it's affected the world too. So my hope here is to have an honest discussion so that we might help shed some light on issues that are surrounding representation in this industry.
Listen. If you're looking for honesty, you couldn't get more honest than Trey and Jean-Francois. Trust me when I tell you. Believe me.
And I'm hoping to help, inspire our listeners and everyone to create positive change. I guess the first question that I have for you guys is, what is it that you see as the biggest issue concerning representation in voiceover today?
I guess I could start a little bit on the aspect of changing the mindset of what is the normal or default person or America or sound, and realizing that there are many different facets to that, and letting those other people, again, just be involved at the start, the middle, and the end, and not just thinking of them as a group to pander to. So when we have, situations where we don't hear ourselves or see ourselves until they want something from us.
My problem is that it has been somewhat limited. I will admit, though, that I have seen, felt, and smelt a little bit of change. And I guess, I think that there is some progress. I'm not necessarily sure if I'll be alive to see this entire problem be solved altogether. I just think that that's just basically how the world is built. But equal playing ground is very, very important to me, always has been, always will be. And I just happen to be, in my opinion, a voice actor who just happened to be Black. I'm not necessarily a Black voice actor, which seems to be somewhat of a limited sort of kind of thing. And so just like Jean-Francois was saying, it's just, I think limited playing ground has always been a problem to me. I've been pigeonholed a lot. I've been typecast a lot. And there's just so much more, not only to necessarily me, but just as, Black voice actors as a whole. Trey, help me. Come on in there.
That. I feel that we oftentimes, because we are a certain ethnicity or a certain nationality, that they feel we are limited to certain types of roles. Or just the opposite, that we probably can't handle other types of roles, so we will get overlooked and passed by, and sometimes even considered less than another talent. And I don't think that it's right. I think it's, for lack of a better term, it's fucked up. And I say that because I'm going to be diplomatic as I can.
I was hoping you wouldn't be, but...
Don't you dare.
Because
Don't you dare.
There's no room for diplomacy here. Come on,
That's
man.
what we're here for.
let me put it like this. Everyone is on a different level when it comes to voiceover. I have heard on commercials and video games and practically every genre, talent that really was not all that good. And in my head, I'm thinking of at least 10 voice actors of color that would have done an impeccable job. And I'm saying to myself, why didn't that person or myself get that opportunity? There has to be someone on the inside that is educating these folks. That's if they want to be educated. Just because we're saying, hey, that's not right, and you should, open it to diversity, so and so and so. That's cool to say, but are there people that actually are cool with that? It's just like they had a casting and there are 4 black women in there and there are 3 white women in there, and they call up, Katie May first, and Katie does her read, and it's pretty good. It's great. It's all right. It's passable. And then they call, Amber, and Amber does her read, and it's not really that great, but they love her energy. She's just gung ho about it. And, you can see the people writing down notes and doing the proverbial, that kind of thing. And then, the sisters come in back to back to back and kill it. 2 or 3 days go by. And you're like, I wonder who they picked for that spot. These are the black women talking amongst themselves or even by themselves. Like, I wonder who. And then that commercial comes on and you hear this very flat voice that's like, yeah, just for $2.99 at participating fill-in-the-blank restaurant. I'm like, that's what they went with? You have to question that. Why are the individuals who are displaying that they have the talent and the acumen to pull these roles off, not getting that opportunity? What was it, or what is it about them, myself included, as all voice actors of color? And it doesn't necessarily pigeonhole black folk. We mean Latinos, Israeli, whatever. People of color, period, are getting overlooked, and that shit is not cool.
Can I ask, do you think that that's casting, or is that the client that makes, what I mean? When you're up against, a bunch of other voice actors, is it the casting directors making that decision, or is it the final say of the client? And where do you think it really stems from, or is it both?
There has to be a discussion between them both. The casting director is hired based off of their expertise.
Right.
If you're an architect and I tell you, build me this palatial, edifice of just beauty and everything, what I'm saying? If I tell you what I want, I'm leaving it in your capable hands that when I come back in 2, 3, 6 months, that, I have the palace of palaces on my street. If I feel that I don't have that, I'm going to ask, well, this isn't what I want. And then you explain to me, well, because there's a fault line underneath where your house is, so we have to structure it this way. And that'll, keep your house from falling into the ocean. So we had to put these support beams here and this here. If you explain to me why you're making a choice, now it's up to me to accept that because I'm trusting you're making the right decision. So as a client, if your casting director tells you, well, we went with her because we think she's a more safer choice, or she has a voice that would be, what's the word? Not the safer choice. But basically what they're trying to mask, with their words is, we feel that her voice as compared to a woman of color is something that's relatable. Because if you think about strangely enough, and I'm using women specifically for a reason, the majority of consumers are women. If you look at the majority of commercials, they are targeted to women because women, traditionally, and I know times have changed, but traditionally they are the shoppers. They go and buy the products to clean the house. They go and buy the products to make sure that there are no germs in the kitchen. They buy the bounties of the world when they wash the clothes. They buy the little crystal pocket thingy, whatever you call them, that dissolve in the water and stuff. So these folks know who to target. And you would think by now in 2021, they realize that there's a lot of diverse folks that are buying clothes and fruit and Go-Gurts. Yeah, and and cleaning products and Go-Gurt for their kids. So why not have voices that reflect that? I saw something or heard something a few months ago, and it was crazy to me because it was the same commercial on TV, but they changed the VO based on the network. So there was this animation of this little girl, and I think she was skating or something, and her grandmother fell or something like that. And on one of the more, what I call the primary networks, anything that's not black, it was like, "Oh, grandma, you fell and hurt yourself." And you can tell that the young girl that was being portrayed was a white girl, and that her grandmother was a white woman. And then I was watching either OWN or BET, same commercial. And instead of, grandma, I was like, grandma, I said, that's a black girl. I said, I just saw this commercial. And that's when it dawned on me, I wonder how many other commercials are being recorded based solely on demographic. There's an okay.
Yeah, no, and I get that. I would see, it just seems to me that networks, they have a demographic for the most part, right? Maybe that needs to be, relooked at. Maybe that needs to be changed, and that most advertising is catering to that demographic. So I'm just thinking from a client perspective, if they are the ones that are putting out the specs, right? Maybe the clients, and that's pretty much anybody, right, that owns a business or, sells a product, they need to also really, I guess, have that understanding that, representation and it should be inclusive of all, right? And that everybody should have that opportunity because they might be selling that product to everybody. But I think that, the way that it's just broken up, marketing, advertising in general, there's always a demographic. You know what I mean? And that's hard. I think that's what kept it maybe so separated in the first place, or maybe that's why, I don't know, I'm just kind of shooting in the dark, but maybe that's why there wasn't representation in the beginning.
There's absolutely a demographic. Absolutely. And so it makes sense when you do, in America, you do a English version and a Spanish version. There are people here who speak who only speak Spanish. So if you want to get to that demographic, you got to do a Spanish version. But black people speak English.
Excellent point.
So we don't need a separate commercial. But also companies need to understand that when they advertise to their, American demographic, English-speaking demographic, that they can use us to advertise to white people, and it's still okay. They don't need to do a white version and a black version just to kind of, make us seem like, oh, well, this is for us. And it's like, no, I can eat Cheerios. Just the same from getting a hunger from Cheerios, watch the commercial, just as a white man can get the same thing.
Right.
They advertise.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. So, we have Home Depot where they are now catering a lot of stuff. For one, these home renovation shows where they usually have a couple doing it. And a lot of the women are making the decisions on what's going in the house. So you see a lot of Home Depot commercials catering to, again, women and wives. Understandable, but we don't need a black version of that either. We just need a version where we are also just included.
And on top of that, when you are, not to cut you off, I'm old and I will forget what I'm saying. So if you don't mind, let me dip in here for a second. The thing is, when the casting call goes out for that generic or that mainstream commercial, hey, include me. At least give me an opportunity. And don't just call on me when you are preparing just to do, quote unquote, the black version.
That is absolutely correct.
Am I right, guys?
You're absolutely right. Because again, if you can Google right now or go to YouTube and go Home Depot. I'm stuck on Home Depot because I just got back from there. Home Depot commercials. It will take you probably around the 7th or 8th video for you to even see a person of color. I live at Home Depot. I mean, there's a lot of Hispanic people who I see at Home Depot, because we're there so much, we know each other by name or face. And hey, what's going on? Like, what are you working on?
Me too.
So this whole aspect of, like, again, forgetting or trying to, it's almost a purposeful erasion of what America actually is, because that is what's been the norm for so long, that we don't have to include people of color. And now people are scrambling to try to overcompensate for what they have been not doing, what they supposed to have been doing forever.
I hear that. And scrambling, good and bad. Or how are you feeling about that? I mean, does it upset you when you feel that it's being, you know what I mean? People are scrambling to make it right, or is that what you mean by that? Or are they?
I apologize for anybody who may be triggered in the aspect of violence, but let's say I smack somebody, and I just smacked them every day. Every time I saw them, just smacked them in the face, walked on my day. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm sorry. And at that point, would that person go, I really don't care if you're sorry, like, you're a horrible person, or that you've been mean to me this whole time. Why I don't accept your apology. You should have been nice. You should have been good from the start. Why is it now that you're changed? What generic reason made you want to change, other than the fact that you shouldn't have been hitting me in the first place? So when you have these people and let's say like agents who are scrambling to add black people to their rosters, or production companies who are now asking for, African American and black voices, and finally adding, a black character in a cartoon, or changing or adding a actor who is black into a cast. Like, are you truthful? Is this real? Is just this a fad to try to appease us for the moment, so you can say, look, I did something. You should be happy. You should be grateful. Or is this an actual change for you, to where you are actually aware of the fact that you messed up a little bit, and now I'm going to at least involve other people in my life? Sometimes I like to go on Facebook and see and go through people's pictures who may be confrontational, who about race, and don't see. I'm colorblind against race. I don't see race, and I go on their Facebook and look at their pictures. I look at their wedding photos. I look at the party pictures, and I don't see a person of color in their surroundings.
And I don't like that term when people say, "Well, I don't see color." I do.
Oh, it's horrible. It's a horrible term.
I see color all the time. If I walk into a casting and you walk into a casting and I tell the CD to close their eyes and you read the script and I read the script, they might not see color, but they saw us when we walked in and they know what our voices sound like, and they have to make a decision. And trust me, color is going to be a deciding factor. Maybe not from a standpoint of, well, let's go with the black guy. But if they say, well, his voice has a certain texture, a certain gravitas to it, I think we're going to lean more towards Trey. And then someone else in the room will say, well, yeah, the other, let's call him Jeff. Jeff has a more friendlier tone, someone that is more a guy next door. Okay, so then what does the copy ask of? If your specs say, authoritative, someone with a commanding voice with gravitas, what you just heard me read. You're going to, give it to Jeff because he sounds friendlier. That's not what the copy asked for. If I'm doing something for the military and it's like pride, passion, commitment, and then Jeff comes, pride, passion, commitment. That's not the same thing.
So these things go on. They go on behind closed doors. They go on with the agencies and the casting directors. A lot of conversations go on online. And I guess what Trey may be getting at is that we don't have enough allies to stand up and say, what in the heck are y'all guys talking about with regards to this thing? And hopefully, I hope that this is an education for you with regards to our struggle. Yes. And it will be for those who are listening to your podcast who don't have a thorough understanding of what we go through. And I really think that it would be horrible not to mention that we're laying out all of these issues that we, these struggles that we deal with from day to day, in voiceover, and not acknowledge the fact that there are people who should not, we're already more or less denied equal opportunity. And then there are other people, and I'm sure I'm going to mention her name because I would not be able to sleep, that want to seize on opportunities that are for us, or at least giving us equal opportunity, where they do ask for African American, and they are not African American. That just burns my grits. It burns my grits. And so the reason why, this light bulb is going on over my head is because Trey is talking about, more or less indirectly, allyship. You know what I'm saying? I think that what I would like, I don't know if I can't speak for the guys, but, the performative allyship is something that just makes me nauseous. From time to time, you know what I'm saying? It just would be good to have more allies to recognize what the problem is and to try to make it better.
To be honest, for one, I want to just clarify because I want to make sure I'm saying this right. Is it allyship or allyship? I'm not quite sure.
Allyship.
Okay.
It's allyship.
Okay, I was going to make sure. I was
do you feel?
Hey, I was like,
do you feel me getting excited here?
Well, I was like, pretty much. I just was like, oh my God. Well, it's just the fact that you can't.
We're good. Ally.
There is a study that went on Twitter that took. Twitter's accounts that use the N-word when attacking people. Then what they did was make two fake accounts, one that looked like it came from a white person and one that looked like it came from a black person. And when the ones that said that came from a white person said, hey man, using that word like really hurts people, and we need to do better as people and they just love each other. And they said the same thing when it came from as the account that looked like it came from a black person. The ones that who the white person reached out to stopped like 80% of the hateful comments going forward on their posts. So the importance of allyship is astronomical. Is the only way that we can actually move forward is that when white people hold other white people accountable. It went with slavery, it went with segregation and Jim Crow, and it needs to happen now. White people need to hold other white people accountable, or it is not going to change because, again, just like how you have men who don't respect the information coming from a woman's mouth, even though it is correct, and then a man can go back and say the exact same thing, and they're like, oh yeah, I get your point, I respect you, blah, blah, blah. And as the woman's like, I just said the exact same thing, like, what the hell, where's my respect? It's the exact same thing with black people. There are some white people who just don't get it because they seem to think that black people are some other breed who they just can't understand unless some white person breaks it down for them. So we need white people to stand up and do the right thing on almost every aspect of life, when it comes to race.
So I'm going to ask the question, which everybody has that discussion about, what about characters, right? And then there's always that response, or there is a response that says, well, it's just acting. What are your thoughts about that, and about the there's been some recent recasting of characters in the news lately, but what would be your response to, well, it's just acting?
I'm always going to look to Trey and to Jean-Francois to finish my thought, because I just have so many things swimming around in my head. But, you know, if you have for instance, I don't know, a character that's supposed to be African American, and if it's supposed to be represented as such, and there is just hundreds of thousands of African American voice actors who are capable of providing an accurate representation, why not hire an African American to do that? You understand what I'm saying? That just goes back to what I was saying about equal playing ground a moment ago. It's bad enough that we haven't been provided with the same opportunities. Equal playing ground. Help me, guys. And so it may be acting, but it's more than that. Go ahead, Trey.
The problem with characters is that most characters are written by white people. And so the quote unquote default character is white. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter who, I guess, like anime. Anime anime characters are mostly Japanese, but yet white people still claim them.
You're right.
Because they feel that they are the default to life. Not even just America, just to life. They are the default. So when you have these characters who are written, and then let's say somebody decides to cast a black person, not even just voiceover, a black actor as a character that is normally white. Was the word conniption?
Yeah,
is that the word I'm thinking of? That happens, where they just freak the heck out, because they just like, oh my God, like that is not what I was wanting, and that's not what I've been fantasizing about, and that is not what I've been envisioning my whole life, because and how dare you put this in my view? And the only way to stop that is if the mindset changes on what is the default, and having more than one black person or person of color in a show or a cartoon, and not just randomly throwing one in, creating shows
and creators, writers,
and creating shows where it shows that black people are people and not always going through black struggles. The reasons why the Cosby Show was so amazing was because it showed a family living life. Family Matters was a black family living life. Yes, they did have issues where they talked about race and other things, but in other words, it was just living life. Fresh Prince, a black family living life. And those shows were amazing. And that's what we need, so that people understand that we don't, when they throw in, when a white creator or writer writes in a person of color, they don't always have to have their story go into this depression of racial injustice all the time. And that's what they do. So when you have white people going, well, what if we made Black Panther a white person? I was like, well, you wrote that black person as in going in through a black struggle. This black character's nation was not invaded by colonialism. That is the whole point. That is the whole point of that character, is that nation was not invaded by colonialism. Where you have Luke Cage, where he has been an injustice of gang violence, and so again, going through that black struggle of being in gangs and going to jail and dealing with that aspect. Where you have Storm, where she was again wrote as a African goddess, an African little girl who's a thief in Africa. They could have totally put her just in America as a little black girl in America and done just fine. But they keep writing these characters, and it's great and wonderful, and they want to give them a backstory, and I totally accept all of it, because all of it is true. But until they start writing these characters as they do white characters, as just normal people doing normal things, you're always going to see a problem with, dealing with white people doing these characters. And it's like, well, if that's what you're going to do is make that character be go through black reasons, you need to hire a black person so that the black person understands them. I could do where you have Red Dead Redemption, where these cowboys are going through life. I understand cowboy life. My family's from Oklahoma, so I always say this to people who say, well, it's just a voice, it's just acting. It's, I was like, okay, well then this is what we'll do. For that show, you can audition for the black role, and we will change it white. We'll make it white for you. And we'll take all the white characters and make them black. And that way, it gives more opportunity for black people to audition for those roles who weren't given the opportunity to audition for the white roles, who were only given the opportunity to audition for that one black role. So then you can go ahead and you can audition for that one role that you've been wanting, and we'll be able to have the more opportunity that we've been seeking out. So if that works out for you, then let's do it. If not, leave us alone. Because they say that black people will need, there's Phil Lamar auditions for white actors. Kevin Michael Richardson gets, and they throw out these guys who are the few black, there's like a handful of male voice actors who may do other roles besides black roles, and it's because they have to do those roles, because if they do not, they can't eat, because the lack of black roles that are written cannot feed them.
And not only that, I believe that when you're in the union, when they book you for a certain rate, it's up to like 3 or so characters. So if you've done your black character, and then everybody else on the show is, you got a redneck from Texas, and then you got, some snobbish New Yorker, and they both are white, you can't just say, well, I'm not going to do these two because they're 2 white guys and I can't do it. But if you're under contract to, if the union's paying you, and for Phil Lamar and Kevin Michael Richardson, I'm sure they're getting much more than scale, but let's say double scale or even triple scale to do these characters, you going to turn that money down? No. You're going to go and do what you're contracted to do. The thing that I don't like is the pundits who not only go, well, it's just acting. Yeah, you can say that because you get ample more opportunities to be everything and everyone else, whereas black actors get half or more than half of the opportunities. And then when we do, we just got to be black. So it's like, okay, we can stay in our little pigeonhole, and if you want to be the gangbanger or the corrupt cop or the whatever, and yeah, his name's Andre, he's a 42-year-old black man, and we want him to sound rugged like a thug. But then on the converse of that, or the flip side of that, there are so many other roles. I mean, case in point, you look at some of these video games, and especially the ones that are more episodic. Some of these video games now are like watching movies, and you may have that one black character who, for whatever reason, he is the angry guy, or he's the bad guy that makes good. There are very few video games, very few animation, and I'll get into that in a second, where we are the hero and purposely the hero. There's a video game called Mafia 3, and the hero of that is a black guy, and his name is Lincoln, and it's ironic, and I think on purpose they made his name to be Lincoln, and he lives in New Orleans. He comes back from the war, and I want to give it away in case somebody plays it, but the cast is primarily, it's a mixed cast. You know, you have these Italian mobsters who, if you go through the credits, are played by white and Italian guys, which is yay. And then you have some Creole folks that are actually played by Creole and people of color. As a matter of fact, someone we know that's near and dear, Dave Fenoy, is in the game. He plays a radio DJ. Big stretch because he's a radio DJ. But I'm saying, you know, these characters have some meat to them. They're not just bit characters. They gave them purpose. They gave them meaning. You know, we need more. And for those folks that are listening, this is what we mean by representation. Not just get us more jobs. No, get us more jobs that allow us to be who we are. If you can do that, and if you can't do that, then find people who know how to do that. Not everyone knows how to write for or create characters of color. You know, there may be things that you may assume about us, and then, you know, if someone black or Latino checks you, like, nah, man, that's not really how we talk. I give you a perfect example. When I got hired when I got hired for Madden, and I remember the audition, it didn't let on who the game or what the game was about. It just said, need a DJ for a sports video game, must sound like, you know, typical DJ or someone at the you know, watching a ball game. And so what I gave them, and I thought about that, I'm like, okay, a DJ at a ball game. And then I remembered there used to be this, what they call the And One mixtape. It was basically this rogue group of dudes playing basketball, traveling in different cities. It was like the Harlem Globetrotters 2.0 because they played street ball. And they had this one guy who was the MC, and he was always like, oh, man, what a pass. And, oh, baby, you know, just getting the crowd hype. So I gave them my version of that in the audition. And here's a fun fact. Jean-Francois and I both auditioned for that. Okay, there you go. And, you know, I remember us talking about that. And, you know, when I told him that I got it, you know, we were both celebrating because at least I looked at it as if he got it, hey, I lost out to somebody I know. And if I got it, he's like, hey, I lost to somebody I know. At least they're keeping it within, you know, it's going to be a brother doing it. But when I got there, and I'm looking at the script, you know, the majority of the folks that were on the staff, there was only two guys of color. There was one of the engineers, my booth director, he was Latino. And then there was another sound engineer. He was black. And I'm sitting there kind of looking at the script, and I'm like, we don't really talk like this. And they're like, everything okay? I said, yeah. Is it okay if I kind of freestyle it a bit? Because some of these lines are, and, you know, admittedly, they were like, yeah, I know it's the kind of white bread, huh? I'm like, yeah. Ain't no kinda. But the beauty of that relationship that I developed with that team is that they trusted me that, okay, let's hear what he has in lieu of what we wrote. So I would look at that line and go, nah, that's not going to work. What will work here is, and then I go into character. Oh, man, you let him do that to you? Man, that's not how we do it. And they would play it back and like, yeah, that fits so much better. Okay, well, look. And then from that point, it's like, look, go through the script. If you see something that sucks, you now have complete autonomy. Change whatever you need because we want this thing to be as authentic because they realized, and this is the trickle down. Yeah, they realized the trickle down theory of it. And what I mean by that is 70% of NFL players, and I don't mean Madden, 70% of real NFL players are African American. if you break it down further, of that 70% of African American players in the NFL, African American players, as in Madden, is probably in the 40 to 60 percentile. So in English, we buy more of their shit. And they like, okay.
So you're helping them sell more.
That is correct. You're not
go. Do you paid more?
You're not going to sell something that's not authentic to the players that play. So they said, let's create this mode, make it fun, and let's get someone they can relate to, because if you ever seen guys play sport video games, we talk a lot of shit. And some of the content that was written, I'm like, this is not how guys talk when they play video games. Maybe in the Ivy League schools, well played, old bean. That was quite a rousing pass you just threw, but that ain't how me and my boys get down. So, I really had to scrutinize the pages, and it got to the point where they would have certain pages where it just have the word ad lib. I'm like, okay, what's up? We just want you for the next 2 pages to give us whatever's in your head right now. But it has to happen across the board, though. You have to get people that's going to trust that if you give us these opportunities and then you realize that we have the talent to do what we are here to do, then it opens more doors. But we got to get that trust.
So if I can kind of ask a question about accents, I know there's a lot of things we could talk about, but accents, but people who would say to you, well, then, if somebody's asking for an Irish accent, should I not do that because I'm not Irish? I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
I mean, I can go to England and develop an English accent, British accent. I mean, it happens every day. When I around my Midwestern friends, my little country bumpkin accent comes out. It just happens. But the problem is that they're equating accent with race. I don't have an accent. When people's like, when you on those
African American accents, they don't exist.
African American, I was like, that's not a thing, because a black person in New York doesn't sound like a black person in New Orleans, which doesn't sound like a black person in South Carolina, which doesn't sound like a black person in Maine, which doesn't sound like a black person in California. See, we don't all sound the same, and so you can't say there's an African American accent. Now there's an African American culture,
because accents and dialects are different. Case in point, you could have someone, and I'll use California, for example. You can get somebody from Compton. You can get somebody from Ojai. You can get somebody from Irving. You can get somebody from San Francisco. You can get someone from Sacramento, and you put them all in the same room. All these brothers or all these sisters, all these brothers and sisters in the same room. And you say, all right, today's topic is gonna be barbecue. And someone from the valley is like, man, I had some barbecue. It was so great. So. Then the dude from Oakland, yeah, man, because me and my dudes, what I'm saying, we had that great barbecue. And they're all from California. But they're from different regions of California. And people talk differently in different regions. And that's what I think folks need to understand, that, yeah, we're all black, but we're all from different regions. I can take 3 people from Jacksonville, where I live, and you may have one who may not have been exposed to, quote unquote, the hood, but he got that cousin that's from the hood, and then they sit in the same room. He's like, yeah, man, so how you been? Oh, man, just try and do what I do, man. Everything cool. How your mom doing? Oh, mom's doing great, man. She just retired. And if someone's not used to seeing that, they may look dumbfounded, like, I didn't know you could speak so well. And that may offend. Hell, you mean I speak so well? You think I'm dumb or something? And that can be very offensive. No one likes to be told they can speak well as if you assumed otherwise.
What's that definition?
And what makes you assume otherwise? Because because I may not put the R on the end of my words, or maybe I say a lot, or instead of saying nothing, I might say, oh, ain't nothing. What gives us our authenticity. And that's why if you have someone that's not of color trying to portray themselves, we can hear it. If you give a white guy who maybe he's been around some black folk, or maybe he grew up in that area. He can probably get away with it because it's been entrenched in him. If he grew up in Houston, Texas, and he grew up in the 5th Ward, and he's like, what's up, shout it with y'all boys out there? Ain't nothing, man, just doing what I do. Paul Wall grew up around black folk. Very popular rapper. What he's doing is not a caricature of black people. That's him being him, because that's what he was exposed to as a child. That's what he grew up around. That's whom he grew up around. So what you see from Paul Wall is Paul Wall. But if you throw, Harvey Miller into that group and he's there for a day, and all of a sudden he goes back to wherever he came from. He's walking the door. Yo, what's up, homie? How y'all doing? They looking like, what the hell are you saying?
My brother who moved to Atlanta for a year came back with a twang. But yeah, it's not unlike, I was from upstate New York and moved to New Jersey and developed, a Jersey kind of an accent, or what we'll call it a nuance, depending on, the people that I was around. You're right. I mean, it's I'm going to call them nuances. I mean, is it an accent? Nuance? Very, very valid points. So,
now, Jersey and New York do have distinctions, though. Now, that you can go with that, you can probably get away with being accented. But then let's break the microcosm down even further. Let's stay in New York. So a Brooklynite, someone from the Bronx, someone from Poughkeepsie, and someone from Syracuse, if you put them all in the same room, the ones from Poughkeepsie and Syracuse will probably have no accent at all. Nothing nasal.
I didn't consider myself having an accent when I was in upstate New York, and I said water and car. Everybody else to me had an accent. So I think it's all relative as to who were around at the time.
But there's something you said that when I heard it, I had to nod to myself. You said that depending on where you moved, it was a certain accent that people could relate to. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an issue with non-people of color when it comes to people of color, because they can't relate to what they hear. They're not able to discern, this guy speaks intelligently, just because it may come off a little gruff to them. Mm-hmm. But to around people that can relate to him, just because he may come off as being abrasive, as long as he can articulate his point. And being able to articulate your point does not mean you have to be articulate. It just means, do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Absolutely.
You think about when you're in a voiceover session and they say, okay, give me an ABC of something. I've done things where I was hired to do something and then they say, well, it sounds good, but we want something that's going to connect and going to relate. And I asked, do you mind if I kind of freestyle it? And they go, yeah. And then I give them something, and then there's that pause where the light bulb just went on, and then they go, can you give us 3 more of that? So now that's telling me, yeah, they feeling it. And then I just give them 3 more variations of the same thing. And by the time that session's done, the mindset that they had when the session started with, this is how we want that character or that read to sound, has been totally changed to, man, we should have went with that in the first place. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you actually should have.
I'm going to say, that you probably are not the only one that has been asked for different sounds, right, in a session. Keisha, I'm quite sure that you might, depending on what job you're doing, if you're doing promo versus commercial versus this or that, you've been asked for different takes, different sounds.
Yeah, all the time.
Is there issues with people when they are directing you in terms of how you should sound, or what are the words used?
I've been asked to add more attitude. That comes up a lot. Actually, my very, very first job in voiceover, they asked me I was actually playing a hippo, which didn't have a race, but in previous productions of the film, Jada Pinkett Smith was the character, and I don't sound like Jada Pinkett Smith at all, but and honestly, a lot of times when I'm being asked to be more urban or have more attitude, I don't do it very well. And so when it becomes offensive is when they try to tell me how they feel I should be able to obtain that. Like one client told me to snap my neck. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, this is a true story. It'll go in my book. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, it's frustrating because, you know, I got the job based on what I would think is because I sounded great reading the audition. And then when I get in the room, then they want to try to make and mold you into their version of what they think is more Black, which is, again, having an attitude or, you know, so forth and so on. It's frustrating.
Probably I would imagine that the people directing you are not of color that are asking you this, and they don't know how to ask you to sound a particular way.
I have taken to myself, and I started to also help other people, Black people, understand that we are going to take the urban direction and change it to Black guy next door, Black girl next door, because again, they want changing it from the, you know, taking the aspects of being more relaxed, you know, in your speech, more, you know, conversational, to instead of the ignorance that they think that it would come with, or the hoodness or the thugness or the sassiness or the such and such, and then just take it as, you know, you just relax your speech. They don't see us as guys next door, girls next door. They see us as the urban community. As a Black actor, I always I have made the decision a long time ago to not take certain roles, and I will perform them as need be, because I will not give them what they are looking for. I'm giving them what they need. This is what you need, because this is how we are. And so we're not going to play into the tropes and caricatures of the aspects of it. This is what a Black person sounds like, which is the whole point of representation, is that you can see me as I am and not what you think I should be. Again, the mindset has to change of what is the default, what is the norm, because I grew up in a white suburb, the only Black family to live in a segregated town. I didn't grow up in the hood. I didn't grow up in the urban city. I grew up in a white suburb in Missouri. That's plain and simple. Even the Black people that lived in the town it was a country town. It was not an urban setting. So this whole aspect of what urban means, or when politicians talk about Black people like we all live in urban communities, no. We live in your communities. We live in normal communities. Black communities are normal. They are suburbs. They might be underfunded. They are still suburbs to cities.
If each of you had one thing to end this podcast on, how we might best help you be allies, what would that be, Keisha?
Representation matters. Authenticity matters. True
allies, yes.
Ally. Am I saying it?
Maybe you got a friend named Ally.
Why do I say ally? True allyship.
Because you knew a girl named Allie.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm exhausted. And, I just wish that we had more folks in the industry who would not sit idle. And most importantly, at this stage, a lot of folks just need to listen. I'm not finding a lot of listening going on. And also don't, last thought here is I wish that a lot of people who aren't of color wouldn't hold people of color responsible to educate them on the disparities, not just in voiceover, but just, overall. Within the African American experience. I sometimes I have to force myself to step away from social media because I don't see enough of that. And it's frustrating, and I have to protect my peace from time to time. But I mean, if I could, I have a million thoughts in my head, but I think that's pretty much how I'm feeling.
Let me ask you that, Ann. Like, what do you think that we could be doing differently or even what, just in the aspect of white people, what could white people be doing differently to help this situation?
You know, that's a good question to ask of me, because being white, privileged, there's a lot of things that I didn't know, and a lot of things I still don't know. And as you say, listening is so very, very important. Again, like I say, I'm so grateful that you guys are here talking today. I know that, as Keisha just said, it's got to be exhausting. It really does have to be exhausting. And the more that I see and the more that I hear and the more that I try to educate myself on it, the more I realize just how much hardship, like I can't imagine, because I have not gone through it, but it makes me just want to do whatever I can to make it right. And it starts with listening. You know, I still have a long way to go. I would absolutely like to see your opportunities be equal no matter what the part. Like, it shouldn't have to call, for a person of color. I think you should have opportunities for every part. I'd like to see that change. I'd like to see the mentality change in terms of, what companies are looking when they're advertising, that maybe they stop thinking so like demographically, but just understand that you brush your teeth the same way I brush my teeth. And, we use the same toothpaste, whatever. I wish that would change. And I wish that on casting, there would be more representation for the creatives, the writers, the marketers, the people that produce shows. I'd absolutely like to see more representation, because again, like if it's just coming from the white man's perspective or the white woman's perspective, that's just not cutting it.
Well, I mean, that's just that's the way it's always been. So, trying to change that mindset of like, let's go music. Or let's just go. There's something recent. Jimmy Fallon had this girl TikToker on his show, doing these TikTok dances. Well, this girl is extremely famous and extremely rich because of TikTok. And she doesn't do anything original other than copy other people's dances. Now, the dances were all created by Black creators. Now, these Black creators, now there's a huge controversy about TikTok, about shadow banning, which is they're still allowing the videos to be there, but they're not giving them views, or they're deleting Black creators' videos, or as soon as the pretty white people do the skit or the dance or the whatever, it automatically puts theirs first above the Black people or even the Black creator. And when people were like, well, why is this mediocre random girl doing dances of these Black people who should have gotten at least the recognition, the spotlight of going, hey, this is actually our dance. She has absolutely nothing to do with it. Why is she getting paid millions? This girl's worth $2 million net worth for doing other people's things, while they are receiving pennies to dollars for their views and for their videos and skits and dances. And it just, to have that Elvis syndrome of liking Black culture but not liking Black people, so we need to put a white face to it, because they go, well, Elvis is the king of rock and roll. Not at all. Elvis was entirely mediocre. Now, art is subjective, but he was extremely mediocre. Otis Blackwell, who he stole his whole singing style from, who was his ghostwriter, he literally would listen to his ghostwriter's record and then repeat exactly what he heard. Like that was Otis Blackwell all day. The Chuck Berry was the king of rock and roll. Little Richie was king of rock and roll. Yeah, that too. Hey, but it's just that, well, we need this white face, this white voice to be the spotlight. We can't have the Temptations be the face of music and Motown be the face of music. So we're going to give their songs to the Beach Boys and have them do it. So we have to again change who I'm gonna keep repeating, the mindset of who America is, who this default is, and that there is no default, and that we all live in this place, and we all sound different, and we all look different, and that is okay. Black people watch NASCAR. Hispanic people watch NASCAR. White people watch NASCAR. And it is okay to have a black person be the voice of NASCAR and telling them about about the engines roaring and the left turns and all that BS. And it's okay to have Trey be the voice of NASCAR, where we had a lot of white voice actors getting a little nasty and a little attitudey about him being proud of voicing NASCAR. Why is this uppity black man, this is what the translated to, why is this uppity black man bragging about a job that he stole from us?
Yeah, because they would ask, how did you, the emphasis on you, as if I didn't have an opportunity or I didn't have a shot. I was like, man, how did you get that? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm just saying, I auditioned for it. I'm like, and your point? But yeah, I mean, I just don't understand how you got it. What did you do? I'm like, I took the same copy you did and read it and gave them something that perhaps they didn't know they needed. And that's how I got it. There's no magic pill to this. And I think you touched on something, Jean-Francois, and I think I'm going to reiterate something that I said in regards to casting directors, but I also think there is a fear people of color that are in voice acting, because especially now that the spotlight is on us, it's like, great. I liken it to, you think of any athlete that has entered a predominantly white field of sports, and then they go on to dominate, and then they go, shit, we can't keep anything to ourselves. That mentality is still there. It's like, it's cool if you want to come and play, and, we'll let you play a few games with us, but hold on. You're getting too good at this game that we showed you how to play. First of all, you didn't show us how to play the game. We learned how to play just like you did. And perhaps we wanted it more because we know that we had to work a little bit harder because it maybe came easy for you. You may have known the CD who may have known your agent, and they were buds and was like, hey, give my guy a shot, and, forsake everyone else. We don't have those kind of connections where we can call up a producer or call up, someone we know that's deep in the bowels of Hollywood or wherever casting is happening, and say, hey, yeah, my man Rick, he's looking for a shot, man. I can vouch for him, and he can do the work. Oh, I'm sure he can do the work. He just needs an opportunity. We don't have those conduits like our white counterparts have. So when people, wave the flag of they want to be an ally, show us.
Okay. You guys have been amazing. I thank you so much for sharing with us and sharing with the listeners. This is probably a topic that we could have multiple podcasts about, but I do appreciate that you spent the time to help educate. You really did. And I hope that Boss listeners out there, that we do our best to take all of this into consideration, and let's be the best allies that we can so that we can just move forward in this industry and in this world. So I'd like to thank you so much, Keisha.
Yay!
I love you. Trey,
you too, man.
Jean-Francois, you guys have really, really
I do what I can.
My pleasure.
been amazing, and I appreciate you spending so much time. My gosh, it's been over an hour, and we've only just begun. So, yes. All right, guys, I'd like to give a great big shout out to our sponsor, IPDTL, that allowed me to get together with these wonderful people today. You too can network and connect like bosses. Find out more at IPDTL.com. You guys have an amazing week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
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 Later on.
Bye-bye.
Join us next week for another edition of VO Boss with your host, Ann Ganguza. And take your business to the next level. Sign up for our mailing list at voboss.com and receive exclusive content, industry revolutionizing tips and strategies, and new ways to rock your business like a boss. Redistribution with permission, coast-to-coast connectivity via IPDTL.